Kevin, how are you doing?
Sure, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. The kind of perfect time to be setting up a web-based training program for coaching when the whole world is looking around for a little bit of guidance and stuck at home. So your timing with growcoach.ie seems to have been impeccable.
Yeah, I suppose if something that's in the making for quite a while. So probably the plan was maybe at the end of this GAA season to bring it out, which would probably be October. But I suppose with the COVID kicking in early on, it gave us more time, I suppose, to prepare. And also, as you said, the timing of giving people something to do at home or just throwing out a few ideas to people. And I'm sure there's always people looking for some nuggets out there, like we are ourselves. So yeah, the timing was probably right, but the COVID probably, the kicking in at the timing probably helped to maybe bring it forward a bit.
Can I ask you, I have this kind of sense that we don't fully value coaching in Ireland the way we should do, that, the whole notion of coaches somehow seem to get a bad rep. And I would actually think in GAA a little bit too, that there's kind of there's a snobbishness, like if an outside coach comes, I heard the phrase carpetbagger used about a coach by a high-profile pundit about a high-profile coach, and I thought it kind of speaks to this whole sense of we don't value coaching enough, that we all need a bit of coaching in various stages of our lives, and having the humility to ask for it and knowing who is good would serve us all very well.
Yeah, I suppose you're looking at it, sometimes I suppose one of the things that you learn as you go along is that sometimes maybe we think we know it all ourselves, and sometimes it's good to have a certain amount of ego, but I think sometimes the ego can stop you from learning. So it's something that we would have been big on, that anywhere you can talk to somebody that may have more knowledge than the angles you're looking at yourself. It's brilliant to get an opportunity to allow those people into your lives and to try to learn. And that's something like we've been very, very strong with, that every day you're not learning is not a day. So it's something that we've worked on. It's something that we probably would feel that we've filled our own cupboards over the last 10 years in particular in managing and coaching. So it's for this time when the COVID kicked in, and I suppose my first time stepping back from football since I was about 12 years of age. So it just gave a great time to reflect, and we've reflected on a lot of stuff, and when you reflect you can always see there's places to improve. So I agree with you. I mean, I think sometimes people think about coaches around this merry-go-round and stuff. They're just good. They have knowledge, and if you have knowledge to bring to your own table, surely that has to be good if you're willing to park your ego. So there's something that every day is a learning day, and I think there's probably is a lot of coaching that needs to be done, and again, it's not all on the ball, and that's something that a grow coach that we would have had a look at for a number of years now. And the big thing is how can you get people to impact a game, whether on or off the ball. And I think the more you get that done, the better chance your team has of competing. It doesn't always mean you're going to win, but you give yourself a chance of being competing and be there down the stretch.
So, Kevin, why did you think there was a need? What's the business need that Grow Coach is going to fulfill?
I think, as I said, I mean, there's from our own experience and looking back and where can things be improved on. Spatial awareness is a massive thing for me. Knowing when to take space, knowing when to make it, and then when you get there, having the tools to carry out the best things you can to make things happen. So you've loads of footwork there. You have balance. You have scanning, understanding what's around you, all the type of stuff that can help players to impact the game or impact their own performance. And if that happens, obviously the team performance will improve. So all those type of things. And then you've got, when do you apply different type pressures? The physical pressure, where does that come in? When are you outnumbered, that maybe you might do a still type pressure or a coaxing type pressure, and then having the footwork to go with that. So there's loads of stuff there, I certainly believe it can be put into our sessions, that just allows every player, whether on and off the ball, to impact that game.
And do you feel not enough coaches are doing this? Are you looking at teams and going, that player could be improved with a little bit of this type of coaching?
Yeah, look, it's anytime you're playing an opposition, you're obviously reviewing the opposition. You're looking at the individuals. You're looking at where can you find an inch to maybe try and get one over the team, and you'll always pick up little things from all the players. And if you're analysing them for 5 to 10 years, you're going to see a lot of stuff where you'd say, well, do you know what, there's a frailty here, or there's this guy's really good at this, or those little things. So every time you do that, and bear in mind, you have a match nearly every week, something will always hit at you, and then you'll go a bit deeper into it and you'll investigate it and you'll have a look at why is this happening and why is this guy so good at this and why is this guy maybe poor at this. And I think a lot of that probably isn't being picked up because, you know, we love the Irish people, the Gaelic games. It's brilliant to watch great matches, and sometimes if you really look into great matches, they're probably the most matches there's a lot of mistakes made in. And you know, if it's a bit off the cuff or, you know, man to man all the time and hoofing the ball out or hoofing it back in, it's exciting to watch. But you know, things have changed over the years. I think, you know, the bit of hoofing that went on back in the 80s and 90s is probably gone out of the game as much now. So, and you've got cornerbacks and fullbacks who will come up the field. They're all very, very good footballers now. So they're not just staying in their own corner. So how do we, you know, deal with that? And all those questions, I suppose, there's heaps of questions there. How do I practice those skills? You know, what pressures can I apply that puts my opponents under pressure? You know, what space do I take and where do I take it? What's the reasons for it? There's loads of questions if you go into it deeply. I do think there's something there that is certainly missing in most coaching that could be brought in.
I suppose that's kind of go on, MT. Yeah.
No, sorry, Ger. No, I was just saying I watched your webinar last night, Kevin, and what I noticed on it was the focus you had on foot positioning. It nearly reminded me of my old Irish dancing classes back in the day. I can't remember the last time I watched a coaching webinar or saw a coaching session where that much focus was put on where your feet were and that kind of stuff. And I can see why it makes a difference, but I can also see how you'd want to be good at coaching it to get it right.
Yeah, look, it takes time, you know, and I suppose one of the things I suppose that intrigued myself since I was a young player. You know, I played a lot of basketball at underage and played it at a reasonably high level. And I remember I had never touched a basketball until I was 12 years of age, and that from 12 to 12 and a half was one of the hardest times of my life as a sports person, because I thought I knew everything about sport, and I suppose taking up a new game, I actually felt like giving it up within a few months because the coach was quite hard on me and wanted me to do new things. And you know, I was wondering why wasn't I enjoying this and on about giving it up, but I was being taught new things, and I suppose it was hard on me trying to get me to do them, and I found it very difficult to change. So I eventually did change, and I suppose I was young enough to change, and went on and had a reasonable career at underage basketball, like, and I gave it up. So I often think back on those times and say, why didn't I enjoy it? I know now exactly why I didn't enjoy it, because it was a new coaching that was being given to me. Found it hard to change, but I suppose the thing is to stick with it if it's the right thing. And if the coaches are good at how they portray the message, it will come right for you. But it's just to have that patience, and you also need that the coach, you know, gives you that comfort to keep you going in those first number of weeks.
I noticed you mentioned decision making as well, and you were saying that some players just are better at decision making than others. Is that something you feel you can coach as well to train people to become better decision makers? Is that kind of where you're coming from with the whole spatial awareness, and just because the ball's in play doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing something else as well, if that makes sense?
Absolutely, 100%. And look, again, some people just have it naturally, so all you can do is improve the person from when you find them. And you know, some people will find it easier than others. Some people may have a background in other sports that helps them. But again, some people just find that a bit more difficult when they're probably good at other things. So, but there's no reason why you can't improve every single player in every single aspect, you know, by hitting at this. And again, you're right. This isn't easy to coach at times, but if you get to the start of it and you start moving in the right direction, you're going to have some improvements. And again, you know, you have to look at county, you have to look at club. You know, the county players probably have more time to get it right. Club players maybe a little bit less time. But then you can also integrate this into the age of 8, 10, 12, 14, just about footwork. You know, youngsters don't need to know what the footwork is for. You don't need to complicate it. But it's very, very easy to give them a type of footwork that's going to help them later in life to bring the skills to the fore at senior level and, you know, in teens. So there's nothing you can do in a nice way from underage up that won't help you, in my opinion.
Were you doing all this with the Galway senior football team? Were you doing all this with Sligo back in the day as well?
Yeah, Jerry, I mean, look, I would have had them in small courts. I mean, our motto would be think big, coach small. I think it's you've got to look at the whole area, but coaching in a tight area, you know, you can get your message across far more. So you'll see a lot of our webinars are done in small spaces. So it's really, really important how we get the message across to the players. And sometimes we have to review ourselves as coaches as well, because you'll often hear the coaches, well, I told him to do that, and I told him to do this, and I told him last Thursday to do this. You really have to show them, and tell me, show me, don't tell me is a motto I've got, and it's a case of, I think it's something like 9-1 for learning. So be able to show somebody in a tight confined space and then eventually bring it out to the bigger area. The learning takes place far quicker. So it's something I've been doing back in 2010 with Sligo, 2011 all the way up, and again, I would put such an emphasis, and if you want to call it, trying to educate myself over those years, that it probably took a few years to bring it from the smaller area to the bigger area, because that takes time as well, and how you do that. So yeah, I've done a lot of that with Galway as well.
When you're talking about a period of reflection as well, are you reflecting on where you are as a coach now yourself, and maybe have you thought about anything you might do differently with the Galway job that you had over the last couple of years, or is it actually about reflecting where you're going to go next with your coaching career?
No, we reflect both, George, to be honest. You look back and say, well, could this have been different? Could individuals have been different? What type of individual did you inherit? What type of background of underage skills have they been taught? And the old dog new tricks is certainly a phrase that's really important in coaching. And the area you get people to do the type of stuff like Maura Tressa said there about the Irish dancing type of stuff, that's a massive start if people can get that type of stuff at underage. So and again, and what gave a great time to reflect as well would be, looking back at all the old games on television, and it was great for me to sit down, because as I said, it's one of my first years since I was maybe 12 years of age, actually just taking a relaxation at home, and then the COVID kicked in, which gave us a lot of time to look at things. So all the games came on telly and stuff, and they were lovely games to watch and all that, but I think we should embrace the great game we have. I think there's a lot of negativity towards maybe the type of football that's been played in all counties, and if you want to balance it and look at the game we have now compared to what we had in the 80s and 90s, where, and I use the word hoofing because there was a lot of hoofing in those games, and I think if you've done that now, all players can play football now. Cornerbacks, goalkeepers, you see the Laois goalkeeper, you'll see a lot of goalkeepers coming out, they all can play football. So the more you give the ball away now, the more you're going to be punished. And I just think it's a great time to reflect and actually look to see that we actually have a very good game. And I think it gets a lot of negativity for the wrong reasons. But on reflection, if the ordinary people that watch games would have looked back at the older games, I'm sure that the reflection time might show a little bit different as well. Was
that a complete pain when you were the manager and there was negativity around the team, and you're like, here lads, come on, this is the strain of discussion around the style of play must have been something that very quickly became an annoyance, even though you're trying to keep it at bay?
Yeah, look, George, to be honest, the most thing that, and I'm out of it now, I can say it, the most thing that probably would be annoying for me would be that you're coaching stuff, you're spending hours upon hours coaching stuff for the right reasons, and you'd be afraid that maybe because of that kind of talk, especially with the social media now, how word spreads, that that some of that would leak into your players, and that sometimes they'd be saying, oh yeah, because it's like I said, when I was back playing basketball at a young age, there's a period there where players have been showing you stuff, and there's always going to be doubt. Oh, will this ever come right for me? Will this come right for me? When and if you this kind of chirping stuff in the background with no basis or no balance, you'd always have a fear as a coach that some of that is going to seep in. It doesn't matter. I'm long enough on the road to take all that type of stuff, but for young players coming through, I wouldn't think it helps. And to be fair, our guys were really good. They learned an awful lot, but there's always a fear in the background that this type of stuff will be chirped at them. In particular, where you might have the old style supporter buying into the stuff that's been said without actually really analysing what's going on. So look, you're probably going to see in years to come that this will kick in quite a bit, because every skill is a skill. It's not just being able to sole with the left, sole with the right, kick the left, kick with the right. Every skill is a skill, and one of the biggest skills in any sport, you'll see the best players are always the players that make other players look good, and that's probably because they find space earlier. They're better in the space, and they have time to think and time to make good decisions. So that's something I would love to see coming into all sports. People be taught, and not just told, and shown how to develop this side of the game to make them become a complete player.
If I was just thinking there when you were saying players who make other players look good and players that do look good. If you just think Jack McCaffrey, obviously he's in the news all this week. If you were in Dessie Farrell's shoes and you got the word that Jack probably won't be back this year, he's not going to be involved in the county, what would you be thinking coaching wise? What plan would you be putting into place?
Well, I'd say, look at every coach anyway is, they're always in the mind frame that there could be an injury next week, there could be a sickness, there could be anything that happen to a player. So there's always a plan B. So I'm sure Dessie has had the plan B for that, and Dublin have such a massive pick. Jack McCaffrey is a superb player and has been a superb player. But I'm sure if Dessie looks into that, there's, no matter how good a player is, there's always weaknesses. And Dessie is going to find a player now to come in there that may have other strengths that the public mightn't even see. So, for instance, Jack is a massive player coming forward, massive pace, brilliant athlete, brilliant attitude. But I'm sure Dessie has found a few frailties there as well and it may be in some of the stuff I'm talking about. So, if one player is out, you got to replace him. I mean, we played Dublin in the semi-final 2 years ago and had them on the rack for a long, long time. And that was without Paul Conroy and Kieran Duggan only back for his first game. That was our whole midfield. And, so there's not a lot of talk about that. So, if one player goes out, it's an opportunity for somebody else to come in. And I'm sure Jack will be definitely missed by Dessie. But look, there's a team of riches there that I'm sure he'll fill it all.
But is that the balance, though, isn't it, when you think about it? Because, Jack hasn't confirmed this, but let's just assume he is gone. Jack is gone, you're thinking, okay, Dessie will have a plan for that. But then if somebody else goes or if somebody else gets injured, then you can see all of a sudden that Dessie Farrell really has to work the coaching brain then, because it's one thing, like you said, 1, 2. As you saw last year with Galway, if 3, 4, 5 fall, then you're in dire straits.
If 9 and 10 fall, it's worse. So we had...
Which happened to you as well, yeah.
Yeah. So look, that happens. And again, we had a fairly clear run in 2018. We topped the National League. Had been really, really strong. Bet Kerry and in Dublin and won our first game in Croke Park, got to the semi-final, and we would feel that we should have been up 5-6 points at half time against Dublin, and we had the scoring chances to do that. It was 18 chances to 12. So again, maybe that belief, when we didn't take those chances, starts to slip away in the last 20 minutes, and those are things, I suppose, that experience brings you. But then unfortunately in 2019 all these injuries kicked in with big players, but all we could do is rejig our team and get other players in and get young fellas in who have experience, which hopefully for Galway now will be a plus factor. Keely McDade, Peter Cook, all those guys, Sean Kelly, all those guys that came in and got more experience. So getting the injured players back now for Pádraig and getting those players had more experience last year, hopefully will work out.
Kevin, Michael Duignan was on fire last night. He was speaking with Joe. We replayed it this morning. We've had a huge response to it already. I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to it yet, but essentially he was saying, and one of the lines in the middle of it was he thought that whoever wins this year's All-Ireland, if they've been training away when everybody else has not been training away, that it's going to be tainted. And as a recently stopped inter-county manager, when the lockdown happened, if you had an opportunity to get your players training, even though they're not insured, what would you have done? What's the right thing to do? And what, as an inter-county manager, would your inner voice have been telling you that everybody else was doing? In reality, what do you think you would have done?
To be honest, the COVID-19 it's a massive medical issue. So to be honest, it was I was actually delighted I stepped away when it happened, because it's very hard to deal with. But look, at the end of the day, you have to think of the COVID-19. It was when it came out, it was life and death. So for me, there'd be no training whatsoever in that. I mean, and I am not aware of teams that were training, but I've kept my finger completely off the pulse. But a COVID-19 situation was, I cocooned myself at home here. I was doing all the stuff you're going to see in webinars coming forward. But it's really, really hard when you're dealing with a medical issue. I don't see how anybody would be getting together as groups. So for me, that was a simple answer. I don't see how people will be affected.
So apparently some teams have been training through it. That was kind of the start of that conversation, that we've heard reports now, again, unconfirmed, and the GAA themselves have said that they're not going to penalise any of those teams who might train with inter-county collectives before the insurance will essentially kick back in. Would it be tainted if a team has been training and everybody else has been obeying the rules?
Would it be tainted? I suppose go back to your closed season over the years, the Novembers and Octobers were they being kept to the ordinary level? Probably not in lots of places. I don't know. Look, at All Ireland is an All Ireland. I think it's going to be whoever wins is going to cherish it, no matter what it is. But it'll probably be tainted anyway in the way that we call it the backdoor system is gone. It's probably far harder to win an All Ireland with backdoor system because you take Donegal, Tyrone. One of those teams are going to be out. If they got a second bite of the cherry and they're back in, things are going to get tougher again. So it's probably going to be that little bit easier, less matches. You're back to, you could win All Ireland back, even when I started playing, you could win it after 4 games. So that had been gone, you're going to have to play at least 10 games. So it's probably going to be, in a way, an easier All Ireland to win, but there's probably more pressure in every game. So it's an All Ireland final with the best teams in the country. So I think if somebody wins it, they're not going to feel too bad about it.
Fair enough. People can sign up on growcoach.ie. You said there's more webinars to come?
Yeah, we're hoping to have our next webinar out in the next 10 days. Just have to confirm that yet. And hopefully after that, one every 2 weeks. And so, yeah, we're looking forward to it. We had our webinar out. It was we had a free webinar out there 2 weeks ago in conjunction with Jigsaw. It was Men's Mental Health Week, the week we came out with that. So we'd love to see people joining up, registering, having a look, and just maybe open the minds, to spatial awareness type of stuff with the different pressures. You've got coaxing pressure, chasing pressure, closing pressure, still pressure, physical pressure, nil pressure. When do I apply those pressures? And when I do, have I got the equipment to deal with it, like the footwork? We spend a lot of time in our gyms. We spend a lot of time horsing up weights, which is vital. But then leg position and body position can be worth 2 stone to you if you get it right. So you have far more strength if your leg position is right. So there's a whole lot of stuff in there that we'd love people just to open their mind to, have a look, and just maybe join us in that space for a while and see what they think.
Do you want to be a manager again, Kevin? Because it sounds like you've got all this knowledge that you've built up with 2 big intercounty management jobs, and that now you're going to share it with people. But it does seem like you actually really enjoy being on the pitch and communicating this to people too. So are you going to miss that at intercounty level? Is it something you want to get back into sooner rather than later?
No, I'm not looking for it at the minute, Ger. It's something that it's an itch you have to scratch on this thing. We've been travelling the buses up and down Ireland with myself, Sean and Brian, who are involved in being grow coach, and we would be always discussing this on the way home and on the way to matches, and just stuff, material that we would have always been educating ourselves on. And we just felt at the end of it that when we were stopping up, that there was so much stuff in the locker, I didn't want to leave it there. And you look now compared to when we played, what's the difference now between coaches and how we coach compared to them? Every player would be always fed with KPIs, given feedback. It's about communication. How do I tell people? How can I show people? And again, that's massive. It's a great way of making relationships with players, but also a great way of giving them feedback of how to improve. And if they feel they're not improving for the first while, and you can give them confidence that yes, they are improving, that's a really good nugget for a player to keep working. So it's really, really important that communication avenues are opened with all players to make sure that they keep improving.
Well, listen, best of luck with it. growcoach.ie is the website, and continued success with it. I hope it massively takes off for you. Cheers, Kevin.
Thank you, Ger. Thank you, Mark.
It's Kevin Walsh giving us some thoughts there on his own new business, which sounds very interesting, and also the main stories of the day. Coming up next this morning here on OTB AM, Colin O'Rourke is going to join us to set the scene for Leitrim's Mount Rushmore. First, let's hear from the Offaly County Board Chairman, Michael Dignan, who joined Joe on last night's Off the Ball. Have a look.